Can you just tell us about this? Well, two questions to start with. Mark's talking about staring into space, and he's alluding partly to your website, Staring into Space. Mm-hmm. And you say you always get asked, where do you get your ideas from? What's your creative process? Mm-hmm. And I think for you, that's where it starts, in the state of sort of like a receiver.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think so many ideas and things come to me because just completely by chance, and a lot of very often when particularly children ask me, where do you get your ideas from? So much of it is standing in a supermarket queue, or just noticing things out of the window. And I remember there was one time I was staring out of the window, and there was this very sort of beautiful man cycling past in just completely perfectly adorned in yellow shorts and yellow trainers. And he had a yellow bike. They looked brand new. And he was holding in one hand outstretched a yellow scooter. And he looked so elegant. I thought he must be going to be trailed by a photography team or something. Maybe he's modeling. And then this calamity happened where the scooter caught in the back wheel of his bike, and the whole thing just tumbled. This beauty all sort of tumbled together, and his bike was completely wrecked. And I was thinking, it was just one of those moments where his worst nightmare is that somebody is staring out the window and seeing this whole thing unfold. But for me, it was sort of a wonderful moment of the perfection turn into this disaster. And you see little things like that all the time. And I know it's horrible, but if you're a writer, that's a really useful thing to see, the way we react to these embarrassments. And
so a sort of good staring out of the window session could furnish you with all sorts of fantastic material for sort of books into the future. I mean, how long do you? Well, where are you? You're in your studio. The other thing we talked about is that when I look at your books, I see an artist. It's this is an artist using the medium, if you like, of children's books to sort of create something. I mean, when you see something like this, you can just stare at it for ages, which is this lovely street scene. And you can see people who don't know Lauren's work already, which is probably not many of you. Meaning, sorry, did I get that right? Meaning most of you probably do know it, I think. But you can see, well, what's going on here? I mean, you do this lovely thing with typography. And I imagine this is something that you've seen out of your window, is it? A sort of London scene in a square.
Yeah, it's that sort of, that kind of perfection of what London might, in a almost in a tourist way and almost in a looking back way, because I was very struck when I remember first seeing 101 Dalmatians, the animation, because it's so beautiful. It's a work of art, and just the what goes into it is amazing. And so I wanted to create some of those scenes in the book, which are like that sort of perfection of how you want a city to be or a park to be. And then you also show other things as well, to show, well, that's almost like that's the moment, but it's not all like that.
Now, where did you school, and how did you get in? Where did you go to art school, and how did you get into writing children's books?
Well, my art school is irrelevant because I really messed up on that, and I didn't go anywhere useful. And the getting into writing was a complete accident, certainly into children's books. I really wasn't expecting to go there, and I wasn't really expecting to be an illustrator either. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was one of those people that was right at the tail end of everyone else seemed to be getting into their place. I don't know if you remember that show Run Around, where you had to run.
Yeah, I do.
And I felt
with
like
Mike Reed.
And I just wasn't finding the right dot to stand on. And so it took me a very long time to figure it out. And I really wanted to do film, actually, but I'd missed the boat. I'd already been to 2 art schools and never found what I wanted. And I wanted to go to film school, and I just felt like I can't drag this out any longer. So I decided I was going to write something that might turn into a film. and it might be like an adult film, or it might be an animated family film. I wasn't sure, and I ended up writing this book, Clarice Bean, and it sort of came out right because I didn't know what I was doing, and because I was trying to do something else. I'd had a go at writing children's books before, and they were all dreadful. And they were
dreadful because they were sort of I don't know, sort of self-conscious or something.
They were dreadful because I was trying to write what I thought was a picture book, and I think they were semi-dreadful. And then I would take them to the publisher, and the publisher would say, no, this is what you need to do, as if there's a kind of formula for doing it. And I remember regularly people getting out The Very Hungry Caterpillar and reading it to me and saying, this is how you write a children's book. And I was thinking, but how can you write The Very Hungry Caterpillar that many times? You know, you have to come up with something new. And so I pushed it all to one side and decided to write something for adults, and by accident, you know, and it was a film, and I by accident wrote a picture book. So yeah,
I know this has come up a million times, but didn't you paint the Damien Hirst spots? That's a sort of famous fact about you, isn't it?
Yeah, that is one of those things, and I'm ever grateful for that job, because I was really struggling at that point, because I had written this book that I knew had something about it that was good, even though everyone turned it down. The great brilliance about failure, having so many failures before it, is that I could tell when they turned it down, it was a different kind of turning it down. It wasn't, we don't want to publish this. It was we'd like to publish it, but we don't know how to. And so I sort of put it to one side and decided not to do any more writing or illustrating. And I started doing lampshade making with this friend of mine for no particular reason. And obviously that was a very hard thing, impossible to make a living at. And then this job came up via a friend, and she said, would you want to do it? And I just thought, oh, just say yes to everything, because I'd been saying no to everything. So I said yes. And actually it was the most brilliant job to have, because I was able to think while I was doing it. It's very sort of contemplative work. You're just mixing paints and painting circles. I loved it.
So that in itself was a sort of meditative exercise that you were also being paid for. I don't know how much he probably didn't pay very much, did he?
No.
He sold them for a lot, though.
He did.
He's a very, very, very clever man. So how did you get the first book out there?
That was sort of, luckily the first book got picked up by an agent. The agent thought it was worth holding on to. So although everyone had said no, the agent held on to it, and then she must have just at some point decided to get it out of a drawer and show it to somebody again. So it took 5 years before anyone said yes. And then when that happened, I was just lucky, because then I got offered more and more work. And because of my failure, I was sensible enough to say yes, rather than think, I don't really want to be a children's writer. I just thought, just do it, you know. And then I really loved it.
Now, there are some downsides, aren't there, sometimes? So not only being called a children's writer, but having the surname Child, which sometimes means that perhaps, you know, you're not treated like an adult by pundits and things. What was the time that you went on the radio with some sort of grand writers?
Well, I've had these occasions where I might have shared, like been on, for instance, the Today programme, and I'm there, and then there's also a sort of very big name, you know, literary novelist being interviewed, and they get asked the questions that are very sort of serious, and in on this particular occasion, it was about the price of books, and can we sustain writers on the amount that they get from selling their work? And I would say the answer is very difficult, actually. But I don't get asked those questions. I just get asked things like, so girl power, Lauren, that's great, isn't it? What is that? But yeah, that happens a lot.